And my next guest is Gary Thompson, Chairman, CEO of Brixton Metals. How are you?
Doing well. Good morning.
Thanks for doing an episode of the Morning Drive, and on behalf of our community, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's kind of fun actually.
So we're going to do a little drive here, and can you maybe tell us how you got involved in this project or this company, because you have multiple projects?
Right. Yeah. Well, before Brixton Metals, I ran a renewable power company.
Right.
I'm a geologist by training, so mostly in the resources space.
Okay.
So basically, in 2010, the company was acquired. The renewable power company was acquired, and that was, as you recall, 2011 was the peak gold price. So gold was looking pretty interesting, and the projections, of course, were much higher for gold prices. So we thought, well, and Cale Moody was the co-founder. So Cale Moody was the CFO of Underworld Resources, and I was the CEO of this company called Sierra Geothermal Power. And so we were both going through the sale of our respective companies.
Okay.
In 2010. So it's like, okay, well, now what are we going to do?
Right.
And the gold market was looking good, and we're like, well, let's get into the gold business and get a gold company and get a gold asset and get listed. So we spent some time hunting around for projects. And actually, Cale's brother was, I think he was doing IR for Rimfire Minerals.
Okay.
And Rimfire was a project generator company that had the project and actually had a portfolio of properties. And then they merged with a company called Geoinformatics and from Australia, and then they ended up having like 40 mineral properties.
That's a lot to manage.
It's a lot of properties.
Yeah. Were they just holding them on to wait for a higher price?
Well, no, they were working on, at that time, they were working on a fairly advanced stage project in Alaska called Whistler, a large copper gold porphyry system. So that was kind of their flagship project. And if you're not familiar with project generators, but their goal or their objectives would be to find good assets, do some work on them, and then find a partner or sell them or option them off and generate value for shareholders that way.
Right.
So it's not a bad model. It's ultimately, become a royalty company if they're successful, which is a good business to be in any event.
Right.
Anyway, so they had all these projects, and Patrick was involved. He said, "Hey, you guys are looking for projects. You should look at Rimfire. They got a big portfolio." So we did, and started talking to the guys over there, and said, "Well, you got all these things. What do you want to do?" So we basically went through and cherry picked a few, and the one that we kind of stuck on was this Thorn project.
What was the main attractions over all the other properties you were looking at?
Well, just the sheer number of showings. They had so many showings of high grade gold and silver numbers on the property. So that was quite interesting to us. It's like, well, like I said, a lot of smoke in the area. What's going on? What's driving that? Mm-hmm. So that was pretty intriguing for us. So we managed to strike an option deal, and we did some work on it, which qualified for a listing property. So actually, this year, 2020, marks the 10-year anniversary. Brixton was listed December 7th, 2010. So I guess hindsight's great. We thought the market was going much higher, and then 2011 was really the peak. And
yeah,
it's been a challenging few years for sure in the sector.
Well, why don't we go there? I mean, that obviously, yeah. Like, what did you guys do?
Well, I mean, we got listed. We raised $1 million plus, and did some work on the project. So the market was, I'd say okay at that point. Wasn't necessarily easy to raise the money, but it's never been easy. But I guess we had good success in 2011. Was our first actually drill campaign. I think we drilled around 6,000 meters in 2011. Mm-hmm. And we drilled. It was actually our second to last drill hole of that season. We had a bunch of targets to test, and it was our second last hole. We drilled 95 meters of 900 gram silver equivalent from surface, just below surface was the zone. We actually were targeting the gold part of the zone, and it ended up being a lot of silver.
Right.
Some really high grade silver in there. So mostly gold and silver and some base metals as well.
Can you tell us a little bit about that area and the landscape of it to go out there and explore?
Yeah, well, it's got a lot of unique history. There's probably been, a dozen companies that have worked it over the years, and I think it goes back to like 1959 was the original Kenco discovery, and that era was sort of post World War II, where they were the first time they were using helicopters for mineral exploration.
Yeah.
So my guess is that they were probably flying fairly high level flights around the area and probably saw the alteration in gosens that are fairly well exposed and pretty obvious from the air.
Right.
So that would have probably attracted them to that site, and so the challenge was, however, that there's no roads in there, so it's all air support. So the programs that were done historically, while they were important, were fairly small in scale and scope.
Okay. Let's talk about the structure of the company. How much do insiders own?
I think we're probably in that 5%, maybe 5-6%, something like that. I think I'm pushing around 5 million shares of the company personally, so it'd be the largest insider.
Okay. And now, obviously, you've been listed for a while. There's been ups and downs in the markets. What's the how many shares are outstanding now?
Right now, we've got 144 million shares, and I just looked this morning, trading at about 16 cents.
Okay.
High of 40 cents. You know what's interesting though? Since we put out our hole this summer in mid-July, and for junior companies, everybody's like, liquidity, right?
Yeah.
A lack of liquidity for a junior miner. Brixton traded 92 million shares since mid-July out of our 144 million.
Yeah, so the float's turned over.
Oh, it's turned over multiple times because you think of it, who owns the stock? Well, 40% of the stock is held by like management. Eric Sprott's the largest shareholder.
Okay.
Rob McEwen,
you got some heavyweights in there.
Hecla Mining, Pan American Silver. So we've got 40% held in strong hands that aren't selling.
Yeah, that's
trading.
That's a big anchor you got.
Yeah, it's a good anchor, and we're really proud of our shareholder list. It's I think impressive, and we've had our best year this 2019 for a challenging junior resource market for the juniors at least.
Yeah.
Even though gold seems to be doing pretty well, it hasn't quite trickled down to the juniors. But we managed to raise about $10 million in 2019. So going into going into 2020 with 5.5. We're gonna go drill some more big holes and
so it must be pretty exciting internally.
It's an exciting it's gonna be an exciting few years for Brixton. I think this last year was probably our best year, and what do they say, 10 years of hard work and overnight success, something like that.
Well, I'm going to be interviewing Rob when I get back to Toronto, so I'll ask him.
Okay.
I'll ask him about the company.
Oh, good.
And haven't interviewed Eric yet. So,
Rob McEwen's been there since about 2013.
Beautiful.
And he's re-upped a few times along the way.
Okay. How many properties does the company have now?
So we have 4 wholly owned assets.
Okay.
2 very large land packages in British Columbia, and I'd say our Thorn project, which has been our flagship, is actually one of the largest land packages in the Golden Triangle by any company. And so one is in Montana. It's called Hog Heaven. It's actually the company's most advanced stage project. It was a feasibility stage project, and we actually have a permit to build the mine. But that was the late 80s when they were going to build the mine. They actually had a green light to build it, approval. We have a newspaper clipping. Hog Heaven gets a green light to build the mine. And then 1990 hit, and price of gold and silver basically tanked. And there was a decade there where, if you remember, gold pretty much was stuck between like $250, $300 an ounce for a decade. So that was a pretty challenging time for precious metals.
Right.
So the property sat idle on that. So that's going to be an exciting one for us for 2020. I think we're going to get there, and hasn't been drilled since I think '94 was the last little bit of drilling on it.
Who are your neighbors in the Golden Triangle? Because I've actually visited the Triangle a few times.
Yeah, so where we are, we're in the northern part of the trend. I guess the some of the neighbors. Well, Dunedin Ventures has some ground called the Trapper Project next to Thorn, but we have such a large land package there. Newmont has still holds the old Golden Bear mine, which I think produced about 500,000 ounces at good high grade oxide gold. That's an interesting little deposit. That little company seeded Goldcorp and Silver Wheaton, which is now Wheaton Precious.
Right.
So as far as neighbors go, we're north of Galore Creek, which is Newmont and Teck, and not that far away from GT Gold and Red Chris mine. So that would be the sort of our closest majors.
Such an interesting district there.
It's
hard to drill. I mean,
it's challenging terrain, but there's so much mineralization. The metal endowment in that trend is just unbelievable.
It is. It really is.
Like you're talking hundreds of millions of ounces of gold in
high
there.
grade stuff too.
Yeah, and good grade, big deposits. So our goal is to continue to it's a major scale project. We're looking for a major partner on that.
Yeah.
I don't see Brixton building that, but our objective is to, de-risk it, do the early exploration. We're going to step out this year and look at some new targets that we have, because we've been focused on, when you have such a big land package, and we've been focusing on a relatively small area of the property. We know there's lots of other showings out there, and you can fly around and see these big goslings.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It really is. I've taken multiple helicopter tours around it.
Yeah, no kidding. But you can't hit them all, right? You've got so much time, so much resources. You got to sort of cherry pick which ones you go to and spend the time on. So we want to do some of that more regional property scale stuff.
I got two things left. So what are you guys doing to market the company and get the awareness out there to investors? I mean, you have a great story. You've got an anchor for retailers. Most of our members are retail, but we do have some institutional guys that are in our chat rooms. But what do you do to kind of continually getting the story out?
Yeah, well, my mission has been for the last actually several years now is to go to cities, good-sized cities that we know there's affluent people there that I've never heard of Brixton Metals.
Right.
And so I've been doing that. Like I went to Nashville. Never been there. They never heard of Brixton Metals.
Yeah.
So that's been my objective. Sort of some obscure but decent-sized cities that.
So hit the road.
Hit the road a lot in Europe. Basically Europe, U.S. and Canada as much as we can. So road shows. Yeah, we're on the German Frankfurt Exchange, and we're listed on the OTCQB.
Perfect. So that makes sense.
Yeah, so do as much as that as we can. Marketing dollars, you can. It's pretty hard to quantify those, right? But you have to get out there and do it. And it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are. You have to get out on the road and tell the story.
Yeah, it's obviously good to get the most of the money into the drills. Obviously.
Well, that's the thing, right? You absolutely have to put the money in the ground, and that's where your value driver is. But you don't want to. You want to make sure that you're getting it out there so people know about you as well.
Well, yeah, and that's important that you said that, because I've done a lot of interviews in the last couple of days and talked to some really savvy investors, some good newsletter writers, and they said you got to be careful with some of these companies that are very run by a lot of geos, because sometimes they don't have the capital market stuff, or they don't believe in marketing, and they think that the only thing that matters is the drill, which ultimately is your best promotional marketing tool. Sure. And I won't deny that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But you got to raise money, and you need liquidity sometimes, and so anyways.
Absolutely. But you might not see that, so you spend a bunch of time on the road, and it's like you feel like you get nothing.
Yeah.
But you've generated a new audience and awareness.
Yeah, I get it.
And it might take people time to get comfortable. And I find with Europeans more so. I think Canadians and U.S. investors. I mean, this is a pretty broad statement, but they tend to be, I think, a little quicker to get in, but maybe quicker to get out. Whereas generally speaking, Europeans are harder to get in as shareholders, but once you did what you said you were going to do, and you build that rapport and a bit of trust there that you're actually trying to build something. And then they tend to be long-term shareholders too.
And typically, a lot of the Germans there, because of their tax situation, when they buy, they hold for a year. Mostly, from what I found, because of they get nailed on taxes. You
know what's interesting about the German market? There's a lot of people there and a lot of investors, and the retail investors don't have any access to deals and companies. Like, they're not going to go to their broker and say, "Oh, get into this junior mining stock."
Well,
so they don't know about these deals unless they're really digging into and following the newsletter
So
writers.
you're saying I should go to Germany?
But Germany is a big market that they just, and not all companies like Brixton and Juniors are
Get
out there
highlighted.
marketing and highlighted.
Right.
So, and it's not easy. You got to go and pound the pavement there, but you have to keep doing it. You can't just go there and that's all good.
So I think
Every year you got to go, and we go there at least once, maybe sometimes twice a year.
Well,
different segments of Europe, not just Germany, but
we need to follow the money German group community.
And they're big precious metal investors in general, and so there's pockets of obviously Switzerland is a big place. A lot of people go there. So we do spend time in Europe, probably more in the U.S. just because it's a little easier for us, closer to home.
Yeah.
And of course, local stuff here.
Okay, let's finish it off with, have you heard about the Save Canadian Mining initiative?
Yes, I have, and we're obviously supporting what they're doing, and so I think we'll make some contribution to it.
Beautiful.
I'm not sure what else we can do to help, but
Right.
would like to see that go through.
Well, hey, anything, just talking about it and sharing stuff on social media or whatever is good,
Mhm. Yeah,
But
exactly, yeah.
hopefully they make some changes there. And I mean, shorting is a part of the market, but let's be honest, the predatory behavior has got to go.
Yeah.
I think the argument on it will be liquidity, but
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And I don't know, the next step would be how do you control algos and
Right.
less humans are trading these days, and I don't know if that's ever going to change, but
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
yeah, definitely.
This has been a great interview, a first interview,
yeah,
and
thank
bringing
you.
bringing you guys to our community. So I want to say thank you again on behalf of our community.
Okay. Yeah, I
And,
appreciate that. It was fun.
Enjoy putting that money into the ground, and hopefully you pull something fantastic out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
All right.